This video was brought to you by the lovely members of my Patreon.
My experience with this, however, is that if I meet somebody who identifies as pansexual, I can probably safely assume that they're open to trans women. I can probably safely assume that they're open to all different types of relationships with transgender women. If I meet somebody who is bisexual, it's kind of a 50-50 toss-up, to be honest. Hey guys, it's Kat and it's time for another episode of True Tea. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me here for yet another episode of True Tea. We upload these videos every single week on a Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And some of you guys are here every single week right on the dot. I especially want to give a shout out to a user named Lilith. She is somebody who supports me on Patreon and she is usually the first person to comment on every single one of my True Tea videos. She's in the hospital right now, so I just want to show her some love and hopefully my audience can do the same. So, I want everyone in the comment section, if you comment, to show Lilith some love because she's not doing really well right now. So I thought that she would appreciate that because she's gonna be the first person to see this video anyway. Those of you guys who don't know, my Patreon followers see my videos before everybody else if I manage to get them done ahead of time, which hopefully this one goes up. So yeah. Anyway, how you guys been? What have you guys been up to? What have you guys been doing? I went to the beach this previous weekend and I had a very, very interesting experience. I'm not a beach person. I don't really know much about the beach and what they do down there. But I decided recently to go. The weather's been really, really nice. And I went to Walmart and got like this umbrella / tent situation. And when I took it down to the beach, I did not have all of the pieces to it undone. There are still these like metal pieces and plastic pieces all tied together. And so I asked the tattooed gentleman in the camp next to me if he has a knife. And it turns out that he had a knife. So he handed me the knife and I opened up my stuff and we started having a bit of a conversation. And he told me that he had recently gotten out of prison and it's likely that he might go back. I didn't, it's not my job to pry, so I didn't want to ask him what he did or anything like that. So I opened my stuff up and when I was done, I went to go hand him the knife back and he told me that I could keep it. And it's only just now occurred to me that he may or may not have given me his murder weapon. I don't care, it's cool, whatever. Anyway, let me know how you guys are in the comment box below. We're gonna have a frustrating conversation about bisexuals and pansexuals, but before we do, I would highly suggest you run to your kitchen and grab yourself something to drink. Now, personally, I am drinking the most advanced drink of the world, LaCroix. It's got 0 carbs, 0 calories, and 0 sugars, and I am 100% in love with it. I love the vague taste of what the fuck is pamplemousse? I don't know what pamplemousse is. I thought this was vegan. Anyway, let's take a sip of this and let's get right into this video. So listen, guys, we're gonna have a conversation about something that I know is gonna upset some people. I know I say this every week, but I feel like it's important for me to acknowledge that the potentiality of things like this happening, because this is a conversation that comes up a lot. I'm somebody who is transgender and I'm also polyamorous and I have several different partners. Most of my partners identify as pansexual. There's a few that identify as bisexual and one of them identifies as straight, right? And I say in almost every one of my videos, that I have a strong preference for men who identify as pansexual or bisexual, right? And there's some differences in my experience between people who identify as bisexual and pansexual. Now, there's a lot of people who are like bisexual, pansexual, whatever, who cares, right? But I thought that I would have a conversation about this because in the previous comment section of one of my videos, I was having this back and forth with one of my followers, and they were really talking about how they did not like the term pansexual. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the issue that some people have with the term pansexual is that theoretically, it is a term that is supposed to suggest an openness to all types of people, whereas some people see bisexuality as a term to be something that only refers to people who are interested in the binary genders, men or women, right? Pansexual is often seen as the more inclusive one. It's seen as the one that, encompasses trans people. And there's a lot of people who believe that bisexuality is inherently transphobic. Now, listen, guys, listen. I'm not saying that. I'm saying people say that, right? this video is not going to really be about a lot of that discourse. It's really going to be just about my own personal experiences. Because to be completely honest with you guys, I do have slightly different experiences with people who identify as pansexual versus bisexual. I'm not here to say that either word is correct or not correct. I'm just here to say what my experience is. And hopefully if you are subscribed to the katblaque channel, you understand that that's what we do here. We have those conversations about my experiences. It's my experience. I was trying to do a my opinion thing. But feel free to come with your experience. That's what True Tea's all about. I give my tea, you give your brew. We have a conversation, we do it. So let's talk about it. So I remember when I was a bit younger and I would meet somebody who identified as bisexual. And I would almost immediately assume that they would be open to me, right? I'll never forget, there was this guy I went to college with. He was this, oh God, my type in college was, I don't know what was wrong with me, girl. I don't know. Like the men I wanted in college are so far from the men that I'm interested in now. But there was this guy in college that I knew, and he was this kind of like 70s rocker kind of guy, you know, he like didn't shower or whatever and like had shaggy hair. And I thought he was so cute. And he openly identified as bisexual. And, you know, I was always trying to, you know, get close to him and flirt with him and hang out with him and things like that. And, you know, back when I met him, this was like either my first or second year of college. So it was really early in my transgender life. And I often had problems dating when I was a bit younger, in that weird sort of phase of like early trans life. And a lot of the reasons why I had such a hard time was because, you know, a lot of the men who were straight weren't interested in me. And clearly and obviously the men who were gay weren't interested in me. So to me, I thought bisexual men are gonna be more open to me. And I remember this guy, I remember getting close to him and, you know, and trying to, you know, kind of get to that point where I could, I guess, make my move and flirt with him and things like that. And we'd always had a really positive dynamic. We always had a really positive relationship. But, you know, I don't know. I only ever saw him date cis women. I'd seen him like make out with guys at parties. I'd seen him do that sort of thing. I was one of 2 trans women at the time on campus. It was a big question mark, right? And so I remember pursuing him and eventually kind of getting into a situation at one of the nights where flirtation sort of happen. And for me, it's often been hard to decipher whether or not, like, oh girl, I could do a whole video about this, but sometimes when you're, especially in your early days as a trans person, people will do this thing where they compliment you, and the way they compliment you is very flirtatious. And it's like, it's this weird, very confusing thing where you can't tell if someone is condescendingly telling you that you're pretty, or are they, because they think you need to hear it, or do they want to fuck you, you know? And this guy kind of did a lot of that sort of stuff, and him being bisexual, I guess I sort of assumed that he would be open to transgender women, right? And so we had, you know, conversation, and I made my move, so to speak. And he told me in that moment that he personally isn't really interested in transgender women, right? And I think that was my first time really reconciling that just because somebody identifies as bisexual does not mean that they are open to transgender women, right? Now, I've often had a couple of different layers of nuance in my experiences with bisexual men. Now, are bisexual men more so than straight men likely to be interested in transgender women? Probably, right? The problem that I've often had with a lot of men who identify as bisexual is, at least to me, and this is my experience, yours might be different, feel free to tell me if it is, a lot of men who identify as bisexual, who are open to transgender women, do sort of have this mentality of transgender women being the, quote, best of both worlds, right? And we've talked about this before. I'm the best of my own world. I'm best of my trans world, right? I do not like being with men who see me as a combination of genders. Hello?
Hey, I'm here.
Okay, great. I'm gonna let you up. I'm finishing up, but I will run. Where is my controller? I will open up the gate and I will be out in just a second. Sorry, I was talking to my daddy. My pansexual daddy. Who's gonna blow my back out after I film this video. Anyway though, so a lot of bisexual men that I've met, they have that sort of thing, best of both worlds, you know, and here's the thing with me. A lot of the bi men that I've personally met, you know, I know that this can be a very alienating conversation, and I really don't want that to be the case, but I can only speak to my experiences. And I know that there are bisexual people who feel a million ways about all of this stuff. I know that. My experience with a lot of men who identify as bisexual is that they are often not interested in pursuing long-term serious relationships with trans women. Are they more likely to want that than your average heterosexual identified dude? Totally. No denial there on my end, right? But it's not terribly common, I think, for me to find a man who identifies as bisexual who also has more than sexual feelings for trans women. That's just my experience. Right? Now, with the men that I've met who identify as pansexual, I've definitely noticed that they tend to be more open, right? Like I said, the vast majority of my partners identify as pansexual, right? 3 of my partners identify as pansexual, right? And all of those men are people who, like, those 3 partners, they are people who have, for the most part, dated women, but they've also dated men. One of my partners is dating a trans guy, right? Another one of my partners is dating somebody who is not out yet as a trans woman, right? They have an openness that I find my bisexual partners don't have, you know? Like, off the top of my head, my bisexual partner, I've mentioned them before, Benjamin, he has very narrow interests. Like, he might look at a certain guy and be attracted to that guy. Like, I remember we were at a party once and I was talking to this like really beefy guy who's a piece of trash, but that's another conversation. And he was like really like, ooh, look who you're talking to kind of thing. He was attracted to him, right? But I don't often see him pursue anyone other than women, and often I guess his interests are kind of broad, but I do see him predominantly pursuing women, generally cis women. I haven't seen him pursue another trans woman, though I'm sure he has, right? And that's just my experience, right? Is that his attractions are slightly more narrow than the attractions of my pansexual partners, right? The issue that a lot of bi people have is that they don't like how pansexuals suggest that bisexuals are not as open-minded, that bisexuals don't have these attractions to trans people, right? My experience with this, however, is that if I meet somebody who identifies as pansexual, I can probably safely assume that they're open to trans women. I can probably safely assume that they're open to all different types of relationships with transgender women. If I meet somebody who is bisexual, it's kind of a 50-50 toss-up, to be honest. It really is. Again, are they more open-minded than your standard heterosexual person? Totally. 100%. But could I assume that a person who identifies as bisexual is as open as a person who identifies as pansexual? Not really. I can't, and it would be silly for me to do so. It really would be, right? Now, I know people are gonna be upset with me for saying that, but it's my experience, right? It's my experience. And I talk about this a lot because I don't like to do this thing where I'm having to encourage or coax a man into being attracted to me. That's like the antithesis of everything I want out of a relationship. I don't want to ever feel like I'm having to convince somebody that my body is worth it. This is something that came up in the context of genitalia preference, right? Because this was actually a comment that I had in my video about whether or not if I had bottom surgery, if dating would be easier for me, right? Because I described pansexuals as being indifferent to genitalia, because that's just kind of the way that I've experienced them. It's one of those, like, they really genuinely couldn't care here or there. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not interested or that they don't like or that they don't have feelings about, but it's generally, if we meet at a party, a person who identifies as pansexual really, at least in my experience, really couldn't care about what happens down there. Whereas I've definitely been in situations where there are people who identify as bisexual who are a little bit more interested in sort of experiencing the dichotomy of course, like I said, the best of both worlds, and that's not something that I personally am comfortable with. I tend to want to connect with people who don't, prescribe meaning to my genitalia. And what I mean when I say that, this is another conversation for another day, but I've gotten into so many debates with people about the way that I use my genitalia or my lack of interest in using my genitalia, like all these really annoying, crazy, I've had a lot of them. And I've had quite a few of these debates with bisexual men who want to be able to have access to a trans body that they don't generally have access to, and I don't like that pressure. Now, I don't want to say, hopefully none of what I'm saying in this video is making it seem like all bisexual people feel this way. I can only speak to the difference in the nuance in the men that I've been with. Pansexual people I've dated across the board have not made me feel like I need to be conscious of how they feel about my genitalia, right? Pansexual people I've dated, it's just an easier thing for me. It really just truly is. So I know that labels mean what they mean. You know what I mean? I feel like if you feel that bisexual is a sufficient enough term, that's valid as fuck. All I can say as somebody who is a trans person is that I tend to find, I can assume that a pansexual person is going to connect with me in the way that I want, which is somebody who's not going to have an opinion about my genitalia, somebody who's not going to be invested in my genitalia, somebody who's not going to project value or lack thereof on my genitalia. I can generally assume that someone who identifies as pan feels that way. I can't always assume that of bisexuals, and that's my experience, So yeah, I guess that's really what I had to say. I'm very curious for those of you guys who identify as bisexual, how you guys feel about this. As I said, I'm coming at this from a different perspective. I'm not trying to be a person who says this word is right or that word is right. I can just say what my experiences have been. And I think that, like, a lot of people, they criticize pansexuality in the context of bi erasure. There's a lot of people who's like, oh, pansexuals are calling themselves pansexuals because they are afraid or ashamed of being bi. There's a lot of people I know who really do sort of see bisexual and pansexual as the same sort of thing. But at least for me, when I see somebody identifying as pansexual, I guess that to me often suggests that they've done a little bit of thinking about how they feel, and that they have thought about how important certain aspects of the body are to them, and they've decided that that doesn't matter. And to me, that's important for me to know about a person before I connect with them. So usually pansexual just communicates to me, this is the kind of person I probably will want to connect with. Bisexual probably too, but again, I've learned that I can't assume that because somebody identifies as bi that they're open to trans people. I can usually assume that is about pansexual people. Usually I can assume that and be correct. Not saying 100%, but generally speaking. So yeah. Anyway, on that note, I will leave you guys with that. I'm sure that there's gonna be some very interesting comments in the comment section about this. But I wanted to share how I thought about this, because you guys, I have to say it. Even if it gets me shit, I have to say it. That's what this is all about. True Tea is about me being honest. So that's that. So if you made it through this entire video, please put this emoji in the comment box below. All the cool kids are putting the emojis down. It's honestly the coolest thing to do. I mean, there's a lot of cool things you could do in this world, but the emoji is probably that thing. I gotta be honest. Like, there's really nothing cooler in the world than putting the emoji in the comment section. Like, That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm probably not because I put the emoji in every single week. So I got cool on clutch, as the kids say. I think I used that correct. I don't know if I said that right. But anyway, that's what you have to do if you want to be cool. So it's up to you. Anyway, on that note, I'll leave you guys with that. Right now, you're looking at 2 videos you can watch if you'd like to continue to sip true tea on this channel. And in the corner, there are several ways you can send me a tip, or you can send me a package if you'd like. I love getting packages, and also strange knives, apparently. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.